welcome to this conversation presented by White House Custom Color. I'm Jed Taufer. Thanks for listening. You know, my wife Vicki and I have owned and operated our photography studio, V Gallery, for 20 years now. White House has been our lab for the last 16 of those years, and we could not be happier. White House is a family-run business, just like ours. If you haven't already, check them out at whcc.com. And if you want to drop me a line, feel free to email me at jed@whcc.com. I think one of the greatest joys for us on this earth and in our lifetimes is finding someone to love and to be loved by. It's an amazing thing to experience for yourself, but it's also something to behold when you see it in others. Like when you spend time with two people that just complement each other so well that you can just say, yeah, they just make so much sense together. Tony and Mandy Corbell are like that. They just fit. And it's wonderful to get to spend time with them. One of the things I love about them is that even though they make a super strong team, they're both so powerful in their own right as well. And yes, Tony may be the living legend, but as he says, Mandy can outshoot him, out-edit him, pretty much out-everything him. And while maybe that's true and maybe it isn't, I can tell you with certainty that Mandy has the best lighting assistant of all time.
Well, I'm Tony Corbell, and I'm here with Jed because Jed asked me to be here. And when what Jed asks for, Jed gets. And I'm here with my lovely wife, Mandy. We have a life in Muskogee, Oklahoma, where we got married 2.5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I moved to Oklahoma to be with this girl. And we're having the time of our life. Mm-hmm. We're both photographers. Mandy had a pretty established business for about 10 years, and then I showed up, and we needed to branch out a little bit and grow a little bit more because of me coming into the picture. And we've taken over a new studio space that's quite a bit bigger than the one she had before.
We still share that space with Kimberly Smith, so there's 3 of us in there, but we schedule around one another.
I think I know who
Kimberly. Yeah, Kimberly's one of the more noted.
I didn't realize that you guys shared a space with her.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, she does an office there, and she doesn't shoot in the studio very much.
Okay.
But we have a nice sales room.
Right.
There, and so Mandy and Kimberly both utilize the sales room and that calendar they share. But
you're saying you have separate businesses too. You two.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mandy does mostly portraits, families, seniors.
I do a lot of editorial work, but I use that studio to meet with clients, do pre-consultations and sales after the fact with ProSelect, and but we share a calendar, a community calendar, and just schedule around one another, and it really works out nicely.
So everybody can be on the same page.
Yeah.
Right.
They both work, they both edit and sort of work as an office situation in their homes. And I'm the only one that has an office at the studio.
Okay.
So I'm down there because that's where I office, because there's no room at the house for me to spread out with all my junk.
Right.
For an office.
Is it better for you to be outside of the house with an office anyway?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yes, it is.
It works great. She'll be trying to edit something, and I'm trying to take her off to lunch. And she's like, no, I got to stay here and work.
So like day to day, you're not even in the same place?
Well, we do.
Sometimes.
We share a lot of time at home. I mean, because he does do a lot of work from home, but he will go in just to get things done in the office.
Right. When and he really needs to focus.
I may be on the computer editing all day.
Right.
And filling orders. But then I take all of my orders and package and deliver at the studio. So all of that happens there, so that we keep
use that space as really a touch point for your clients to experience.
Yes.
Whether it's pickup or sales, or of course any sort of sessions that you do there. But do you think that having that space, this is just occurring to me, having that space allows you to project a certain image about your business and your brand that then maybe justifies higher pricing and higher perceived value?
Without question.
The moment, I used to run my studio out of my home, and I worked on location. I presented in clients' homes. I took their deliveries directly to them, which sounds very professional and sounds very convenient. But I can tell you, the moment I moved into a studio space and people had to come to that space and see work and examples and samples on the wall, the feeling of it changed immediately.
Right.
You know,
Right.
it immediately became more professional, and people didn't ask about pricing anymore.
The impression's completely different.
Right.
Because there's so much that you feel as though is just understood when they come to a space like that. I ask because, and the reason it occurred to me, I know, is because I think there are a lot of people that are in a situation where they have a home-based studio and they want a storefront or another physical place so bad. And they think that, if I can just have a spot like that, I'll be able to do this, that, and the other thing, which to some extent can be true. But I had a person say something to me like that one time, and I said, well, how many kids do you have? And she said 3. And I said, well, you're going to have 3 more. And I want you to challenge me on this because I also want to try to convey what I'm getting across to you guys and get your opinions. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, well, another space requires effort and maintenance and time and money. You know, I get it. And yes, it might, and it could very well raise the perceived value of your product, and you might be able to charge more. But understand that you're also going to have to pay for the space.
Exactly.
Right? And so I'm not saying that. What I'm trying to say is that you can't paint with a broad brush on when it makes sense for whomever, but you have to look at an individual case. Like she had 3 young children. And what I was trying to do is just to get her to understand.
She's about to paint herself into a situation where she's got to leave the kids with somebody. She's got to get to the studio, whereas if she was working out of her home, she could continue whatever it was she was doing, and the kids are taken care of.
And just because she would be able to charge more because of that space doesn't necessarily justify.
It's not all the. It's not the whole picture.
Right.
Yeah.
But in your situation, it makes a lot of sense because you have a certain brand,
and we have it's a big space.
Right.
And it's big enough and nice enough that we host workshops there too.
Right.
And we've got plenty of room for workshops. We've done,
which is a big part of what you do.
It's
teaching.
It's a big part of what I do.
Right.
What we do. Sure.
Right.
And I hope to see her do more of it because she's really good at it. You know, she's got a great program on retouching. That's a fabulous program. She's written actions for frequency separation for skin and all sorts of things, and she's just really talented at it. But we have probably done, I've probably done, I don't know, 4 or 5 workshops since we got the place. Kimberly's done 2 or 3. So we're keeping the studio.
You're using it for
We're using the space.
As
There's room there to spread out and do this.
And that's also given us a presence in the community.
Yeah.
You know, the Chamber of Commerce loves us. We've had musicians asked to come down and play at events that we host there.
Right. They're coming to you.
And
we have room in the back, and our big warehouse room in the back is big enough. We photographed bands back there. And
nice.
We had live guitar, keyboard players at our grand opening. I mean, we had lots of space.
Nice.
So.
Yeah, and just other businesses recognize us as a business, and we are doing more business with the community because of that.
Sure.
You know, I'm not just a photographer with a camera that's seen at events.
Right.
We have a presence.
Right.
And that really makes a difference.
She was just asked recently for, we did 86 headshots for
Georgia Pacific.
Georgia Pacific. One of their paper divisions has a headquarters in Muskogee, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I don't think that would have happened. I mean, I knew who she was because I think of her presence in the community, but I'm not sure that would have happened if we didn't have the space. Right. And we didn't shoot them in our space.
Right.
We went to their office and set up in their conference room.
But one led to the other.
One led to the other.
Sure.
And it was a great job, and one of those ideal situations.
Now your program, say the name of your program again.
Between Light and Shadow, lighting for volume and events.
Yeah.
And
you both give that.
Yes. That has been our first venture together.
That's what I wanted to talk about.
Tony has had this speaking and teaching thing going on for all of his life, and he does a lot of commercial work. I do the portrait side of things, and we decided when we got together we needed to keep our separate identities.
Right.
We share the space, but we keep our separate businesses. But we wanted to do something together.
Right.
So we kind of launched this Champion Sports Imaging, is what we call it, but it covers events. And it's been a good venture. It's a learning experience. It's a horse of a different color. It's not portrait. It's not commercial. It's a lot of work. But we saw a need for it in our community.
That's the main thing, is it's not something that we really were seeking to go do until we saw there was a need for it.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's a need for it and it can be pretty profitable,
Mm-hmm.
then we'd be fools not to go after that.
Well,
See
you
if we
feel
can.
pretty confident that you can also do it well,
We
given
feel
your backgrounds
pretty
and your
confident we
experience.
can do it well. And that's why we were asked to speak here. In fact, this group, when we were asked to speak at this convention, they said that track, that event and volume world, they don't have a lot of great programs they pick from.
Right.
They're just lacking the numbers
Right.
of people available.
Right.
So they wanted us to do something in that direction, and we'd already started moving that direction a little bit anyway.
And yet, in the industry, it's a surging segment.
It is a growing segment because people are figuring out there's good margins and there's good averages,
Right.
order averages, if you do it well and if you do
Right.
it professionally and if you handle it the right way.
And somebody said this the other day. Isn't it also a segment that isn't something that's being affected very much by just anybody with an iPhone or with a camera? Because
Right.
there's still a big demand for that. That's like
Huge.
a thing that everybody still wants and everybody still buys and everybody's still excited about.
No
correct?
one's not gonna buy a picture of their child and put it on the fridge.
Right.
And it's going,
Right.
and if we're going to do it, it's going to be well lit and well
Right.
posed, and it's going to be
Right.
great, and it's going to have a great background dropped
Right.
in, and it's
It's going to
just
stand out from every
It's
other
going to
year.
stand out from anything in
Sure.
the community.
Sure.
You know,
And what we've noticed in the past few years is that market was affected heavily by parents with cameras that are going out to sporting events and shooting, but the teams are coming around and they're realizing they're not getting
Exactly.
the professional results, that they're getting snapshots.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, we need to go out and find somebody that can give us quality work,
Right.
deliver on time, have an organized event, because it can be a mess when you're shooting 8 teams on a day if you don't have it
You'll be
nailed
organized.
down.
Right.
and we have chosen to put a stake in the ground and say we light everything.
Yeah.
We're not natural light photographers.
Right.
You know, hashtag.
it.
I made the
get it.
joke yesterday on stage that, you know, those that on their website say, I'm a natural light photographer, hashtag, I don't know how flash works.
I don't know how to use lights.
I don't know how to use lights.
Right.
So we choose to light everything outside,
Yeah.
especially. And yesterday we showed a number of examples with and without light outside, and showed them why you've got to do this and why you've got to. Yes, but it's a lot of trouble. Yes, it is a lot of trouble. Yes, it's going to take time. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And I'll guarantee our averages will be better than yours.
Right.
Because people notice the difference. It's
Well,
a
and your
quality issue.
sustainability will be, like your long-term sustainability will also be better, because the second they do what they've already done, which is revert or allow it to go into a situation where they're sacrificing quality, right?
Mm-hmm.
They see it right away. The difference is that much more striking, you know, between what you're capable of doing and what most other people
Well, that's the fun
are
part for
capable
us
of
too, is to
doing
get that call back,
Yeah.
to do it again.
Right.
You know,
Because it's what people demand. Like the
Yeah.
bar gets raised to a point, and then that's what people expect. And then when they don't get that, they're upset and they want what they had
and
before.
from an individual basis, it's not very costly for the parents for us to do this work.
Right, it doesn't shift that
It
much.
doesn't shift that
No.
much for them,
Right.
but over the long haul, with, you know, as she said, 8 teams. We did 8 teams, 8 little football teams not too long ago. Times, you know, 30 kids a team, times however much per kid
Yeah.
sales average.
Yeah.
Well, all of a sudden, that's pretty significant.
It's worth
and
your- it's certainly
and it
worth
took
a
us
day's
2
work,
hours to
right.
go do the shoot.
Right.
You
right.
know, it gets pretty. It can be
Interestingly
significant.
enough, we had one team that did not show the day we were doing that particular group.
They were on
And,
the field practicing, but they didn't come in.
They
for the
didn't
picture.
come in, and I sent someone over to say, hey, we've got this slot ready for you. We had people there, you know, that we had hired to assist and take orders, so we're just sitting there waiting. rolling the clock, and we're told that the coach had the team had not had a good practice, and they were a little off, and they weren't going to do pictures. They were just going to practice instead. Come to find out, one of the moms on the teams had offered to do their photographs for much cheaper. And so we just had to let it go.
Right.
And I didn't have to say a thing. Within a couple of weeks, when we delivered all the photos on the school feed, some of the parents were posting the ones they had gotten from us, and they're like, look at our sports images. And one of the moms from the team got on and said, I so wish we had done that. And she posted the pictures that they had gotten, which were snapshots of their kid far, far away under a scoreboard. And you couldn't see their face.
Well, then you have that basis of comparison for everyone to look at.
Right.
There it
And
is.
then the other parent got on underneath and said, I guess you get what you pay for.
There you go.
And I
there
was
it
like,
is.
and I didn't say a thing. And
You didn't have
let
to.
it go.
Touchdown.
It's perfect, right?
Yeah. I was like, that's all the advertisement we needed.
It's ideal. It's ideal. How has the venture been going with you two? Considering you have all this life experience in your separate businesses. You come together, you get married, you still keep your businesses separate. You still have these separate identities.
Well, it's because I didn't
in that
like
way.
her logo.
That was the reason. Oh, brother,
It was a little girly for me.
I know you're joking.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yours looks a lot like mine.
It does. It does.
Touche. How is it now in this venture where you're kind of coming together and working more in the same space as partners in that way?
Yeah,
It's pretty natural.
Yeah,
There's no
we've had a
struggle.
good time, and
We've never had an argument. I mean, we really
better
haven't.
knock on wood.
She
I don't know if you're being serious or
No,
not.
I'm being serious. We don't argue, ever. I get frustrated on small things, like I can't ever find a lens with a lens cap on it. But in the overall scheme of things, I'm not going to whine about that.
No,
Right.
But he
right.
usually does what I tell him to do. So
That's
there's
right.
no
So-
arguing.
So it's all good.
It's all good.
Happy wife, happy life. I get it. I get
You
it.
know that's true.
I also know what it's like to find lenses without lens caps on them.
Yeah.
And I'm not a photographer, but it grinds my gears when gear isn't taken really good care of.
Yes.
So, and so I have certain standards, and but I'm the same way that you are in that regard. In that you got to pick your battles.
I'm not going to die on some of those small hills.
Why am I going to do that?
Yeah,
no,
I'm
it's
not
not
going to
to
whine
happen.
about that.
Not going to happen. I'd probably make it like a passive aggressive comment.
We have a great thing going, and the fact that we were both so passionate about doing this and doing it at a good high level, I think makes it all work for us.
Right.
We know we're not going to do any of it halfway.
Right.
We're going to work hard at it, and it takes effort. Both sides of the business. When she does a family of 12, I'm not about to let her go shoot that by herself. I'm going to go out and help her light it. I won't go with her on our seniors. She can handle the seniors without me.
Right.
And
He doesn't like those 2 or 3 hour
I
sessions.
don't have patience for
No, I get that piece.
16-year-old, 17-year-old kid that
I
doesn't
underst-
want to be there anyway.
Well, I understand that too. Mandy, from your perspective, what is it like to have access to Tony Corbell as an assistant?
Well, it's pretty entertaining. It's pretty amazing to not have to tell your assistant where to put the light.
To just rely on the assistant
He's got this.
to do all that heavy lifting.
When the first job I went on with her before we got married, I moved up to Muskogee a couple of years before we actually got married, and I rented a little house across town, and the first time she had a really large family at a golf course at the country club, and I went out with her to help, and as I'm setting up the lights for her, she's talking to the family, and I hear her talking to the mom and the dad, and the kids are all coming out, and the grandkids are all coming up, and everybody's showing up. And she said, "Well, this is Tony. Hi, how are you?" He's really good.
I said he's really overqualified for this position.
Yeah. Someone says, "So, what's your life all about now?" And I said, "Well, I stand out in the woods and hold Mandy's reflectors," and I'm thrilled to do it.
It's so great.
Thrilled to do it.
It's so great. What are though? So I get that you guys get along really well, and I get that there are lens cap issues and small hills that you're not going to die
Yeah.
on. But how do you handle challenges so that they don't become big problems, both in business and in your relationship?
I think we're both realists.
I think
You know?
we're both open enough to, I hate to say criticism, but if there's a problem that we come across, we're both pretty open to say it and talk about it, and not in an accusing way. You know, maybe we show up on location and there's a piece of gear that's missing.
Yeah.
You know, I can look at Tony like, why didn't you put that umbrella in, or why didn't you
Right.
put that softbox? But I know I did this for years and years on my own. It's just as much my responsibility
It's on you too, right.
to check and make sure that that equipment is in there.
Right.
So I can't really blame it on him. And he's so good about, I'll run to the studio and get
I'll just
something,
go get
you
it.
know.
Let's go get it.
Yeah.
But sure, I mean, we're normal. We run into challenges, but we are just really open to talking through things. And that's
We haven't.
it's the communication
We haven't
that
not been
makes
that
a
way since we
difference.
met.
Communication.
Yeah. We talk stuff through always.
Given that, how do you handle sales then? Do you both do?
I have nothing to do with the sales.
You don't?
No.
That's
No,
all. That's all you.
I come back and I handle the input of, you know, with volume, it's totally different than
Right.
custom portrait work. With custom portrait work, I'm doing Pro Select and the in-sales studio, in-studio sales.
Right.
And with this, we're taking order forms and entering them in. And yes, I get to do the bulk of that.
For the commercial stuff that I've done over the years, you know, it's a job that you bid out on a day rate or a bid, and you go shoot the job and then you send the invoice. It's pretty simple for me.
Right.
I don't do sales for the commercial work.
Right. You don't have to sit
I
down.
don't have to sell them up to a bigger print.
Right.
They're
Right.
getting the file and it's organized and well done and on time.
And given the topic of your program, what are some things that you can discuss on a podcast? Because it's not exactly a visual medium, so to speak. But what are some things that you can go over that people can glean from, just from an audio standpoint, just by listening? Because you're not going to have the ability
Well,
to show.
for one
graphs.
thing, you know, there's such a importance has been placed on replacing backgrounds and shooting in crummy situations on a bad field with dead grass and a bad sky.
Yeah.
And dropping those out and putting in a beautiful stadium lit
And
with
swapping
lights
them,
and
right.
swapping out the backgrounds.
Right.
That happens more than it doesn't happen now
Okay.
across the country. And one of the things that makes a big difference for anyone doing those kind of extractions off the backgrounds is lighting it in such a way that it's helpful for the retoucher that's doing the extraction, making the subjects look great with accent lighting, and lighting it in such a way that you just make the whole process a little easier.
So that it looks authentic in the
And
end, too.
And that's it too.
We like to say begin with the end in mind. Know the background that you're going to be using, because
How it's lit.
how it's lit,
Right.
you're going to you want that subject to look like they're standing in
Right.
that situation. Of course, a real popular look right now is to have all the stadium lights and
Right.
and things coming forward. So
Yes.
we do a lot of edge lighting to make the
That's what a person
extractions.
would look like.
And
standing
make
in
it
that
and make it a
stadium.
little brighter than it would be normally, so it does look like it's a little bit
Yeah.
more normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she just
So-
did one basketball kid that was really well done. And she doesn't know she did it on purpose, but it was probably a subconscious decision on her part. But there was a basketball goal up high and on the left behind the kid, and there was a spotlight coming down from the basketball goal. The accent light on the kid's, on his right side of his face was
brighter.
hotter than it was on the other side, and it
Happy
absolutely
accident.
looked like
Happy
it was a happy accident
Right.
that looks like it was
Right.
actually in the right spot.
But
When it
you
was-
do as much as you can intentionally in those.
You
in
do.
that regard.
Absolutely.
You do. Yeah.
And so what's something else? That's a fantastic tip. But what's something else that people can take away that you can't you can talk about without having to show diagrams or whatever?
We've used the Elastolite background effectively, which we really enjoy. That's the big pop-up.
It's called a highlight, Elastolite highlight, and it's a 5 foot by 7 foot softbox, basically,
Yeah.
that you put your lights inside of.
And you don't have to bring a background stand or a background. You just pop this thing up and put lights in either side of it, and it gives a beautiful backlight that's clean and white. Your extractions are actually less money when you have them taken off of a Elastolite background.
Are you doing extractions, or do you send that out?
We send those out.
Who gets those? Who does those?
Ribuku.
Ribuku does those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's a
75
big
cents
deal.
a
Well, that's the
extraction.
thing, right? Like, someone
Why would we take
someone
time
can
for that?
literally sit there for 5 hours and work on an extraction to try to get it
Right.
just right.
Yeah.
When is that not an example of something that makes all the sense in the world to outsource?
Absolutely.
If people are doing their own, they're losing money in their business. Period.
Right.
They're losing a lot of money because you can't replace the time.
But you do want to know enough to set it up on the front end so that A, it's lit the right way, and that B, the extraction is able to be done well so that the final product looks authentic. Is that fair?
Yes, and another little detail there is to photograph at least f8. And I think a lot of we were speaking as people going from portrait photography to volume.
Yeah.
And in portrait photography, we commonly photograph pretty shallow,
Yeah.
at 4, 5.6
Yeah.
at the most. And you want crisp, clean edges if you're going to have a crisp, clean extraction.
Right, that's a great tip.
So bump that up.
Yeah.
And I think that's even mentioned on the site. There are instructions on the site, Ribuku's site, of how to get a clean
Of
extraction.
how they want, ideally how they want you
Right.
to send them the image.
But I have saved myself so many hours
By not doing it yourself.
and I can't do as good a job. Whatever they're using
Right.
is so good.
Let them do what they do.
Right.
We do what we do.
So outsourcing, I think, is a big deal. That leads me to another thing regarding that in particular. And that what are there any other things that you can think of off the top of your head, especially that makes sense to let somebody else do?
Yeah. Well, sorry, I jumped ahead of. I didn't let you finish the sentence.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
No, I had another thought. I just had another thought on doing something to make it different and to not lose sight of the fact that all of it matters. The quality of this matters. Light it like it matters. Go out of the way. Shoot it like it matters. I mean, really put the effort into this thing.
Don't half-ass it.
If you half-ass it, it's gonna be half-assed.
Right.
So
Right. Right.
people say, well, it's a lot of trouble to go to for a volume for a little kid football team. You bet it's a lot of trouble, but
and it's worth it.
but it's worth it.
Right.
That you never know where that next job's going to come from.
Well,
and
because
it could
is
come
it
from
not
a
more
parent.
important for us to separate ourselves
We
from what
have to
the
separate.
masses are
We have
capable
to.
of doing more and more?
Tim Walden put it so well a couple of years back when he said we got to create bigger gaps
Yeah,
between us and those
that's
other
it.
people.
That's
Those
it.
gaps have to be increased, and that means we got to elevate ourselves.
That's it. That's it.
You know?
But and outsourcing for me is important because you're able to do that without it taking up your time, right? Because the word extraction is terrifying to me when I hear that, because I think of all the work that I know is required to be able to do that well by me.
Absolutely.
And there are so many other things, whether sometimes it's retouching, sometimes it's culling. I get that. And then other people are like, no, I do my own because I can do it well and I can do it fast. I also know how I want it to look. But there are certain things that it makes sense to outsource for people. And extraction is certainly one of them. Mm-hmm. What else from your program? Anything else specifically that comes to mind?
I don't know of anything specific from the program that comes to mind other than we really did sort of relay the message of just quality. It's the quality of your presentation, your logo, your price list, how you treat people, how you set up. When we go on location to set up one of those volume things, we've got flags. We've got rows of flags, and we got a road set up and a little pathway that the kids come down with big signs, parents not allowed, only coaches and players, and we put big tents up and we've got signs.
So like down to the details.
It's everything
Right.
about it. It's an experience that we're creating for them.
Right.
So that they look around and say, holy cow, we've never had this kind of an experience
Right.
before. Our separate tent out front where the orders are being placed, and there's all the samples of all the products that we have. And
How big is your team on a shoot like that?
Well, I was just going to mention that a difference between what we've done before and this type of photography is we do have to have a team around us. So we usually have 3 to 4 people,
Right.
depending on the size of what we're doing, that come in and assist. And we've got people taking orders at the table. We've got a bouncer, if you will, at the gate that's
And that's
making
a
sure
mom.
that parents
And
don't come back.
And she's the palace guard, and that mom she's the bouncer.
She doesn't take anything from anybody.
You guys go away. They got the kids. You moms go away.
Right.
Dads, you don't need to be in there.
Right.
Go
And
away.
then we're not back there trying to explain to parents why we don't want them back there, because that comes
Well, in
off.
a way, you're outsourcing that.
Yeah,
Honestly, it's something that you don't want to. You can't mess with that.
right. We don't
extracting.
have time for
Right?
that.
You are, or having somebody else do it. Right? Like,
Exactly.
somebody else is
That's funny.
taking care of that situation because you can't be bothered by
We
that.
can't
when
be
you have
trying to
these
get the
other-
kids' attention,
Right.
and mom's over your shoulder going,
Oh.
smile, straighten
Right.
your collar, straighten.
Right. So
Go
you have
away,
somebody
Mom,
else.
stop it.
You have somebody else fill that role.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Makes
And
all
we
the
don't
sense
want to
in the
be
world.
the bad guy. We just want to be the
Also that.
photographers.
Also that.
Yeah.
We want to be the fun ones.
Yes.
You know?
Well, and it's a big deal because if you're not, then that gets associated with you and then the experience and then the images themselves. Right.
Exactly. Oh, she was that mean photographer that wouldn't let
Right.
us come back there.
And then they don't care how good it looks.
Right.
Honestly.
So they don't want to work with you because they think you're mean.
No. Right. You what? So for your workshops and all your information, where can people go to find that and sign up or find out more information about you guys and what you do?
Well, for the workshops, the site for the workshop is tonycorbell.com.
Okay.
And my workshop partner is from Dallas, Rob Hull, and I have been doing these workshops for 4 or 5 years, and we do 1 or 2 international workshops a year. This past year we did a fabulous trip to Italy.
Tuscany.
We've got Tuscany. We've got an upcoming trip to Liverpool. Because of course,
I know about that.
do we have to even discuss the fact that I'm the biggest Beatles fan
You are that I know of.
that
you are.
anybody's ever met?
He is.
So we're doing Liverpool. We've got, and then in the studio, we've got, in a couple of months, we've got a 2-day Tony portrait workshop in the studio, lighting workshop in our place. And which I love working in our place because we get to do a better, more thorough job. And it's great for people to come in and see us in a real working situation and see what we do
in your environment.
in our
right.
environment,
Right.
you know.
Right. Absolutely.
And then Rob does a great Lightroom workshop, a Lightroom tutorial workshop that we call the Lightroom Learning Lab.
Right.
And so yeah, we're busy doing all this stuff, and it's all on the website.
Okay. I just want to make sure people have a place to go. When they
Yeah,
wanna-
and then Mandy's work, if you want to take a look
Yeah,
at some of
what's
her
yours?
things.
Mine is mandylynnportraits.com.
Okay.
And that's my website.
Right.
And we are building a website for our sports
Okay.
imaging. So don't have that ready to launch yet. But
Right.
it will be.
At her site, I would hope that your listeners would click on her under portfolio, click on the awards button, and look at some of the awards this girl's
Okay.
won, and some of the great work that she's done, which is just astonishing.
I love to see you guys lift each other up. It's very inspiring to me.
I told everybody yesterday. I said this girl out shoots me, she out edits me. She's just amazing.
It is fun for
It's-
me to see how madly in love you are with this woman.
Yeah,
I'm not
Pretty
even. I'm
crazy
not
about it.
even joking. It's a beautiful thing.
The night we got married, my daughter said, "Oh my gosh," she was making a toast, and she said, "I have never seen him in love like this."
That was big. That was really big.
big.
Well, it's a wonderful thing. Thank you guys for
bet.
joining me. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for
The
asking. us.
Jedness. When the Jedness asks, the answer is yes. Be safe. Thanks, buddy.
Bye-bye.